more important than ever to promote more sustainable types of fishing.
Weddings in general leave a huge carbon footprint.
Our mantra is travel well, travel right.
Welcome to Save My Planet. I'm Stephen Brooks, here in beautiful Costa Rica, where sustainable tourism has made a real difference for the country and its people. More about that later. First, from tuna to abalone, we eat huge amounts of seafood, and our growing appetites have led to some harmful fishing practices and created big problems for marine life. The good news is there's plenty of things we could do to help keep our oceans healthy and our bellies full.
We cannot survive without a healthy ocean. The oceans provide the air we breathe, they regulate our climate and our weather, and they provide seafood and a healthy source of protein for billions of people throughout the world. The ocean is threatened now as never before. Overfishing is rampant and more stocks are now depleted than they ever have been. Since the 1950s, for example, we're eating 8 times the amount of seafood, which is essentially all being pulled out of the ocean or farmed. The mission of the Monterey Bay Aquarium is to inspire conservation of the ocean. We take all of the research that we do and we put it into recommendations of what type of seafood is ocean healthy. What really makes seafood sustainable is actually fairly simple. It's that you're not taking out more than the ocean can provide, and you're not having impacts on the overall marine ecosystem in the process.
Both commercial fishing and farming, or aquaculture, can cause serious damage when they're not done right.
Some of the destructive fishing practices out there, like bottom trawling, are destroying the very habitats that promote the diversity of life and healthy fish populations in the ocean. We're also catching many species like sea turtles, marine mammals that are now threatened with extinction as a result of the impacts of fishing. At the same time, aquaculture has stepped in to help meet the demand for seafood, and while some aquaculture is sustainable, other forms also have a very damaging impact on the environment in terms of the pollution that comes off of the farms and also in terms of just the sheer amount of wild fish they're using to feed the farm fish. Through the Seafood Watch program, we provide information to consumers and businesses in terms of what types of seafood is more sustainable to eat and buy and sell.
Right now, we are in the Real Cost Cafe, one of our exhibits here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And this is an exhibit where visitors can come in and there's seafood on this menu that's ocean friendly, and there's seafood on this menu that people should avoid. Our Seafood Watch pocket guides are put together with 3 different lists. The green is our best choices. Those are the fisheries and the fish farms where they're really doing work the right way. In the middle is our good alternatives. Those are things to eat and enjoy once in a while. They're still sustainable fisheries, but they're not as good as your best choices. There's a number of fish on the avoid list, and they're there for different reasons. Some fish are there because they're just not good choices for us to be fishing. Fish like sharks that live a long time, reproduce very slowly. Other fish are there because we've been working the fishery so extensively that we've overfished them.
Now it's more important than ever for consumers to really vote with their pocketbooks and their dollars to promote more sustainable types of fishing.
We work with almost 200 partners across the country to help educate and spread the word about sustainable seafood. One of our great local partners is the restaurant Passion Fish, where their entire menu is sustainable seafood.
Sustainable seafood is seafood that is harvested in a manner that does not impact another species in the ocean, nor the environment around it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the sturgeon, spot prawns.
We're very lucky. We have about 7 active fishermen in the Monterey Bay Sanctuary that fish these spot prawns strictly with traps. So that makes it a very sustainable item. There's very little impact to the ocean environment and no bycatch whatsoever.
Bycatch occurs when other sea life, like dolphins or turtles, are accidentally captured and killed. Business owners like Cindy are sending a strong message to the fishing industry. If you're not sustainable, we're not buying.
everyone can have a part in being part of the solution. Even folks who don't eat a lot of fish can talk to their family, share what they know, pass out pocket guides, and just sort of help the word get out there so people are thinking more about their seafood choices.
I do what I do for a very selfish nature because my father was a fisherman and his father was a fisherman, and I want to experience the ocean with my grandchildren in the same way that my father experienced it with me.
You might think that you're just a little fish in the big pond, but remember, every choice we make impacts the planet. Up next, we're gonna visit an aquaculture operation in Monterey that's farming abalone the eco-friendly way. Welcome back to Save My Planet. Our appetite for seafood has caused some serious damage to our oceans, but fishing doesn't have to be unsustainable.
My name is Arthur Seavey, and we're on Monterey's Municipal Wharf number 2, right next to our abalone farm. Myself and my other partners have always made the decision to be a sustainable operation, and we feel strongly that environmental sustainability is directly tied to economic sustainability. In other words, if we harm the environment that our abalone rely on for their good health and for their good growth, then our business is not going to survive very long.
Sustainable practices, especially in the ocean, are so important because there's such a connection between all of the ecosystems that we depend on.
And Monterey is the geographic center of the red abalone population in California. It's a really good place for our abalone.
By growing indigenous species, they avoid the risk of introducing foreign ones into the ecosystem. And by farming right there in the ocean, they let Mother Nature work her magic.
All of our abalone cages are grown right here in the waters of the Monterey National Bay Marine Sanctuary. The actual tides and currents help to keep the water flow, and we don't need any sort of energy or pumps to keep the whole system running.
Abalone is one of the most sustainable kinds of aquaculture, and that's because shellfish consume locally produced plants. That's what they eat.
Kelp is the major component in their diet in the wild.
And kelp grows naturally right there, so they don't have to ship in food from across the country. Plus, these guys harvest the kelp in a sustainable way.
The way that we harvest it, we're only taking the fronds that are at the surface, and so the rest of the plant is left intact to continually grow.
What we're doing is essentially similar to what the waves do. We're taking the canopy at the very top, and then the kelp regrows. Kelp is an important habitat for many marine animals, and so it's important to have a sufficient canopy in the environment for all the other animals and other users of the kelp forest that need that canopy. So we don't want to over-harvest it.
Whenever you're looking at sustainable fishery, one of the litmus tests that they use is whether or not that farm can continue to operate year in and year out without really changing the environment. Because we're farming an indigenous species, we really have very little impact on the surrounding ecosystem. What's directly under our wharf isn't much different than what's a few hundred yards away from it. They do a really good job of making sure that they don't have the type of disease and pollution problems, and they're not really relying on catching wild fish out of the ocean. This, to us, is what we consider a best choice that we recommend consumers look for out there in the marketplace.
If we can make good choices about the seafood that we buy and the seafood that we're allowed to produce, whether it's by fishing or by farming, then we can create jobs, produce quality seafood, and generally create happiness in coastal communities.
The next time you sit down for a seafood meal, remember, what you order is what they'll catch. Up next, we're gonna meet a green wedding planner who's gonna show us how to have fun walking down the aisle, but still only leave little carbon footprints. Welcome back to Save My Planet. Combining sustainability with an event as big as a wedding can be a real challenge. On average, a single wedding in the US produces about 500 pounds of trash. With more than 2 million of them a year, that adds up to a lot of waste. But there are plenty of options out there to help make your wedding as grand and memorable as possible while still keeping it sustainable.
Hi.
Good to see you. Come on in.
Hey, Lisa.
My name is Lisa Gordon. I'm a green wedding planner, and I help couples plan the most eco-friendly weddings that they possibly can. So you guys are 4.5 months out from your wedding, right?
Yeah.
The best thing I can do to help engage couples plan their green wedding is to give them information, to give them resources that they don't know about, and to help them just think outside of their usual thought patterns. It's about finding the way to do what you want to do in a way that makes sense, not just for you, but for everybody. And it's really cute, yeah. I really like that. The biggest contributor to the carbon footprint for a wedding is probably transportation, and that means not just your transportation around town, but your guests coming in from out of town. The second biggest thing is probably your location.
That's right. Just think about all the energy that goes into lighting, heating, and cleaning a reception hall. But don't sweat it. There's plenty of event spaces out there that are keeping it green.
Logan Square Kitchen is a building that was a vacant, blighted foreclosure in 2007, going to auction. My husband and I purchased it and joined the U.S. Green Building Council, renovated the building sustainably, and now we offer a beautiful private event space. We worked very hard to source materials and equipment from within 100 miles of our location, reducing our transportation footprint. That is something that people love just because they like to know that dollars are going to other small businesses in the local community and that dollars are being recycled in our local economy.
Honor and keep him in sickness and in health.
Wedding dresses are tricky. There are so many that are made out of synthetic materials that will never break down in a million lifetimes. One way to make a wedding dress like that more sustainable is to make sure that it gets another use.
White Chicago is a designer wedding consignment store. You can think of bridal consignment as a way to recycle, restyle, and recoup. So you're recycling because you're buying a dress that was otherwise in a warehouse or, in someone's attic, under a bed. And then you can restyle it. You can really make it yours. We do a lot of different things. Add sleeves, take sleeves off, short and long, put different bustles in. And then after the wedding, you can sell it, recoup some of the money, and pass on the love, and best of all, recycle.
Okay, we all know clothing can be recycled, but you can't serve your guests used food. So how do you cater an entire wedding and still be sustainable?
If you want to have a low carbon footprint for the food you serve at your wedding, one way to do it is to have vegetarian food because meat contributes a lot of carbon to the atmosphere. I try to keep a whole list of vendors that I think do a good job on the eco front.
There's a lot of reasons why our cakes are more green than the alternatives. In a traditional bakery, there's a lot of things that kind of go wrong. The equipment that they use is not energy efficient. There's just not a lot of care put into what happens to the earth when you make this cake. The way that we bake, we use all organic ingredients as much as we possibly can. If it's not certified organic, it's from a local farmer that we trust has never used pesticides but has not certified himself. There is a thought put into every single ingredient that we use. Also, to the very end, your cake gets delivered in a hybrid. So from start to finish, it's every effort of care gets put into it.
Very cool. And what about the flowers?
Well, flowers are easy because they're like food. You want them to be organic, you want them to be local.
I always encourage my clients to use seasonal and locally grown flowers. By choosing a wedding date when things are going to be in season, you'll be able to have more locally grown food for your guests to eat and locally grown flowers as well. They not only don't have to travel as far, but they're fresher too. Oftentimes they're cut that morning and brought to market the same day, and it's often more affordable than imported product.
That's even easier because you know where to get recycled paper. Well, Randy and Julia found me. The fact that they were interested in sustainability issues meant that we had a lot to talk about, and it was really great to know that right off the bat.
Weddings in general leave a huge carbon footprint, and so that's why it's important to us to try to have the greenest wedding we can. Going with a green wedding, I thought, well, we will have to compromise, we will have to do certain things, but it's been surprising because you can have the same quality of things that you're looking for, and at the same time, you can add special touches when you ask people for help. I feel like it's more
intimate and unique.
It's more us.
Yeah.
Maybe you can't solve the problem. Maybe you can't do it at every wedding, but every little bit you can do chips away at the problem. And really, it's more about getting people thinking about it than anything else.
You know, you can take a green approach to any occasion, not just weddings, whether it's birthday parties, anniversaries, or even corporate events. You can have a good time and still be sustainable. When we come back, we're gonna explore what ecotourism really means and see how Costa Rica's leading the way. Welcome back to Save My Planet. We're here in Costa Rica, a country that's helped pioneer sustainable tourism and set the standard that a lot of other places are trying to follow. I'm here with Maria Ravella, who is the Director of Marketing of the Costa Rican Tourist Board, or the ICT. And Costa Rica's been an incredible leader for sustainable tourism for countries all over the world. Tell me, Maria, how did this get started?
10 years ago, the Costa Rica Tourist Board created a program called Certification for Sustainable Tourism. We call it CST. That is the program that really tried to measure the level of sustainability of the different properties. It followed very, very strict criteria, not only hotels, but for tour operators too.
Wow. How do you rate the hotels?
We have 4 pillars that we measure with different criteria. One of the pillars has to do with the way the hotel was built. The other one is energy consumption, waste management. The other one has to do with the clients, how the clients are involved with the program. And the fourth is socio-economical, all the things that has to do with the communities. So we really think that these properties and these hotels that has the CST are like a little sun in every community that really brighten up the whole community around them.
I'm here with Jim DeMalis, who's the General Manager of Green Teak Hotels. And tell me, Jim, what's Green Teak?
Green Teak Hotels is a group of properties that focus on sustainable hospitality. So in the group is Sicamano, Villa Blanca, and Águila de Oso.
So tell me, what kind of sustainable programs are you incorporating into the hotels?
In each of our locations, we have a program. For instance, in Villa Blanca, we're working with Imbio, reaching out and sharing the information with our guests about the impact on moths in the cloud forest. Sicamano, which is in the Central Pacific. We've got a wildlife refuge, which is adjacent to the hotel, where we have full-time biologists that help us with the research and also share that information with our guests.
I'm here with Hazel Blanco, who's the Sustainability Manager over at Swiss Travel, and we've been talking a lot about the CST certification for hotels, but I understand here we're talking about a travel and transportation service, right?
Yes, correct.
Obviously, transportation has its environmental costs. What are you doing to minimize that?
Well, we start with measuring our consumption of gas in order to calculate our emissions, and then we can compensate and offset this footprint. So right now there's a reforestation program. At the moment, we plant around 3,000 trees per year. That's the amount that they have to plant every year just in order to offset their emissions. And also very small things like checking with itineraries. You know, you can reduce your emissions just by creating a very good route for the cars.
That's really important, is every little thing we do, there's so many of us that it becomes really a big change and really helps save the planet. So once you visit the property and assess the situation, is there like some kind of rating system for these hotels?
Yes, we have a rating system. From 1 is the lowest level, is 1 leaf.
Oh, it's by leaves, not stars.
Yes.
I like that.
And 5 leaves is the highest score.
Here, we try to make the lowest impact possible
We use biodegradable soap. We do all kind of environmentally friendly practices. And this is a very good example of how you can develop a hotel business, applying the best practices to keep conservancy for the area.
Our idea was we wanted to give something back. I mean, you can have a great vacation in Costa Rica. You can benefit the community through our CST programs because the idea is to interact with the community. You can enjoy the enthusiasm of our employees that are all from Costa Rica who are proud to work here and work with us. And at the same time, you leave something back when you travel to the United States that's positive for the area.
Costa Rica and the CST program demonstrate how tourism can be both sustainable and profitable. And what a great way to help save the planet. I'm Stephen Brooks. See you next time.